Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show. Today is November 7th, and we're doing government and security stories to start your week. And a good November it is, except for the person on my timeline who said, I'm going to drink some crock-pot Pepsi to celebrate November.
I saw that tweet.
Yeah.
Did you look into that? Is that literally just putting Pepsi in a crock pot?
Yeah, someone asked that person who tweeted it and was like, what do you mean by this? What do you mean crock-pot Pepsi? And they're like, like mulled wine, but just Pepsi in a crock pot.
There is some truth to that, because if you had really tough rump roast, it was urban legend / not that you could crock pot the really tough rump roast.
No, I've made
That's
Dr.
legit.
Pepper chicken.
Yeah.
I've made Coca-Cola chocolate cake. But that's not what we're talking about here.
No, we're just talking about like literally just pouring a 2-liter of Pepsi into a crock pot.
That's going to take so long. Why not pop that in the microwave?
But why drink it hot in the first place? Someone else tweeted, was like, wouldn't that remove the carbonation? What are you
For
drinking
sure.
at that point?
Just hot sugar water.
I guess, yeah, it was bewildering. I can't stop thinking about it.
You know who else wondered what were they drinking at this point?
Well, we know what he was drinking it because we have the detailed description of all of his largesse that he went through during those times. But those days, it appears, are over.
FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried convicted of defrauding cryptocurrency customers. Guilty on all counts. Not a good day for Mr. SBF.
Would you not be shocked if it was anything else?
Would you say that fortune did not favor the bold on this particular instance?
Well,
I'd
it favored
say-
him for a while, yeah.
It favored the moron for some time. It heavily favored the United States government. So we don't know what the sentencing will be, but it could be up to 100 years, which is not long enough for that piece of trash.
He is going away for a long, long time.
And once again,
Or not.
I feel like we've already heard this, but we just keep getting new
Fluff pieces.
fiat
Yeah.
dictates and speeches that are not really much substance here.
Biden signs an executive order to oversee and invest in AI. One of the biggest things, we talked about this last week, how there's a lot of stuff in here that's not AI, but one of the pieces that came for AI is that you got to license your supercomputer.
Yeah, the bad thing, I mean, in terms of like improving our lives and keeping AI from dominating us one day, not a lot in here. But in terms of giving the government control over the AI, plenty of stuff in here.
Did you go to the website? There's like an AI.gov now.
Oh no, I didn't say
It
that.
was all just fluff.
This is also more regulatory capture than any kind of real. Remember when cryptography had to have export controls, and the State Department's like, I don't know if you can send this cryptography to Iran. It's too strong. It's like that with AI. Although the limits are kind of absurdly high for today. I think it's, what is it, like 10,000 H100 GPU equivalents if you have a single supercomputer that's that powerful. That's what they want to, if you're training a model, I guess, that is that complex, you want to register it with the government. But the Supreme Court's going to strike this down probably.
But let's say that you put that into law, all right? So now, yeah, it's kind of high. In 10 years, it's a desktop computer.
Yeah.
So,
It's your phone.
Yeah, it really will be your phone.
and it won't change.
No.
It won't adjust upward to accommodate that. And we have other big court cases. And one of the biggest, of course, is the FTC finally going after Amazon for antitrust. And there's a lot of things that we're learning from that.
Amazon execs destroyed years of evidence before FTC action, the agency says. So this is so amazing. There's so much stuff that has come out of this lawsuit and discovery. The FTC has smoking gun after smoking gun after smoking gun of people inside Amazon telling Amazon executives, hey, this is bad for the customer. Why are we doing this?
Jeff Bezos, there's a quote from Jeff Bezos saying, no, we're going to do this because we're going to make more money.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. It went all the way to the top.
If the FTC doesn't win this case, if they snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it is going to be just, I will be so salty.
And yeah,
I think the other stories might be in the business section, but yeah, like a lot of stuff that we've been hearing about Amazon over, like, the colluding to raise prices and all that stuff. And they were dumb enough to talk about it.
My favorite thing in all of the disclosures there from the U.S. government was the ad executives talking about defective ads, and it's like, we need to increase the rate of defective ads, or defective refers to ads that don't have anything to do with what you're looking for, because people will see it and buy it anyway.
Which Grocery stores have been doing that for years, right?
Yeah.
Now, especially with the self-checkout corrals now, you have to snake through the
So much
like,
crap.
It's like a minefield of corn syrup.
Maybe I do deserve a little bit of Altoids today.
I wonder if there are any like non-human intelligence anthropologists that are looking at this unfold and it's like, oh, the evolutionary pressure is now on just whatever this is. Like, what is this referred to?
There was a word for it when I worked at a grocery store. Was it impulse purchases?
Yeah.
Like there was a word for like, this is stuff we put here on end caps so people will impulsively buy them.
And it works, especially for kids. Well, also seems that the SEC is going back in time and finally enforcing things. I wonder what changed that made them feel like they could get away with this. Maybe the fact that people are getting fed up with all of the horrible failures of security.
The SEC charges SolarWinds and its CISO with fraud and cybersecurity failures. This stemming from reporting to regulators that they were following cybersecurity processes that they weren't following. And you read the SEC charges and it sounds really pretty damning. But the reality is that this could have a chilling effect across all information security stuff inside of all of the government. There's a lot of pressure on tech people to say, oh, no, it's fine. And when you point out something is horribly on fire, broken, and terrible by design, they tend not to include you in meetings anymore.
And there were more instances here where there was an underling that was like, hey, we should probably be doing this. And the chief guy was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
It's like, oh, they extended the lifetime of that software a little bit longer. And it's like, well, that's really just life support for the Fortune 500. Your stuff is horribly insecure and should still be updated. Oh, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that.
And the SEC also, old man Goblin Gensler, has always been at war with cryptocurrency. It's never stopped. And in particular, he goes after it. It's like, oh, this is fraud. This is money laundering. This is speculation. You're gambling. But even when it's not those things, and it might actually have a functional purpose, he don't like it.
The SEC subpoenas PayPal over its US dollar-pegged stablecoin. He's probably planning to use this as leverage to get other kinds of controls out of PayPal. But that's just my cynical view.
Which is why you're here. I mean, isn't all of us are cynical to some degree.
But it's interesting because remember JPM coin
Yeah.
hitting a milestone in transactions? I don't think they're under any scrutiny.
That's so weird. And none of PayPal's bank-like activity and yet not having to register as a bank. That's also, no negative repercussions. That's also weird.
PayPal is horrible. I kind of like it when bad things happen to PayPal because they're buying into this whole, we're going to make the world a better place by de-financing people, which is just disgusting. And if you love cheap drones, but you happen to work for the government, maybe you're in like land management or something and you're really getting something out of your DJI drone, bad news.
U.S. House panel seeks ban on federal purchases of Chinese drones.
A lot of our national parks ban drones. Can't fly them.
Even if you're a ranger?
Yep.
Wow.
Because they're noisy. They disturb wildlife, disturb hikers. Yeah.
So what you're saying is we need to come up with a remote-controlled dirigible. That'll be the hot item this holiday season.
We've got limited amount of time to get it out before holiday season.
I bet any kind of raptor would just mess that up.
Yeah.
You'd have a tough time keeping those in the air. And we got some big multinational agreements this week. Now, you might be thinking, isn't this another multinational agreement that doesn't really enforce anything? You'd be right. Good job.
28 countries reached a landmark agreement, quote unquote, on quote unquote safe and responsible AI development.
But secretly, they're all developing AIs that don't adhere to this.
We always point out these things, not like you should read the article and, blah, blah, blah. But our reason in pointing this out a lot of the time is that a powerful AI model that you can download and run on your own hardware could empower you as an individual to sift through a lot of information or to have lots of really amazing things to do something for yourself. And that's really what terrifies these 28 countries.
US, Australia, China, and the European Union are the big ones, of course. And they're probably responsible for most of the boot on the throat of the world. I mean, Russia's definitely in the boot club, but of course they're not going to invite Russia to this. And we found out recently that Biden was encouraging businesses in America never to pay ransomware. And then they went around the world and they were like, hey, let's all agree not to do this. And once again, we have a non-binding agreement.
Alliance of 40 countries to vow not to pay ransom to cybercriminals, the U.S. says. So how long before it's against the law to pay the ransom to cybercriminals? I mean, not that you should. You definitely should.
It's not a bad idea. I just don't know how binding it will be.
But we did just get the Las Vegas thing.
Yeah.
One of them did pay it.
Yeah.
So, interesting. And Nokia.
What year is it?
Well, Nokia may not be doing much in the current year, but they developed some stuff a while back and patented it. And they're saying that, hey, you're all violating.
Nokia sues Amazon and HP over video patent infringement. And so there's a link to the blog post from Nokia. Oh, we don't want to have to do this. And I went to read it, and there's no mention of the actual patents, because I would like to read the patents. And because of that, I'm very skeptical of these claims.
I was also, a little puzzled by.
Has to do with streaming video.
Yeah.
Encoding and related videos. Like, how's YouTube not caught up in that one?
At this point, because their blog post didn't mention the specific video, the specific patents and the innovations that they did, I'm of the opinion these are the rounded corners patents class.
Well, Canada is also a government that loves stamping down on its citizens and preventing them from using certain things because they don't like where it's from.
Canada bans WeChat and Kaspersky applications on government devices. We've covered both of those things separately in the past. Kaspersky in the distant past. Kaspersky antivirus. It actually made a product that was kind of popular. It turns out, might have been a counterintelligence operation.
I mean, I would never use WeChat. The Chinese are for sure. If an American IP pops up in WeChat, of course somebody's monitoring it.
But then there's part of me that kind of thinks, like, how annoying is it if you're hoping to get some juicy American intel and it's just like memes?
It's just polluting the water. They're probably fine with that. They're so good at collecting it.
Yeah.
Just start a file.
Maybe they make their own folder of memes based on what they steal from American chats.
Now, in stark difference between Mr. Gensler over here in the US, over in the UK, they have a whole different slew of crypto announcements.
UK publishes some final proposals for crypto and stablecoin regulation. This feels like a game show, and yet this is foreign and domestic policy.
Now, they are saying, hey, we want the people, the crypto people. Come here, open your crypto shop here. We love it. We're going to regulate it, but we love it.
That seems like that's not true, though. What with the whole having to have a license to get on the internet?
Oh, you got to have a license. You know what? Get a big wallet because you're going to have a lot of licenses.
You have to sort them alphabetically.
You have to get a special license when you've got more than 10 aggregate licenses for digital goods and services.
Now, the EU, which is different than the UK, of course, now, they had their big online thing ratified, and it's there. It's going to happen. It's terrible. And a lot of cybersecurity experts got together and they said, hey, guys, you have no idea how bad this is.
EU digital ID reforms should be actively resisted, say experts.
30 plus experts.
What possible bad things could happen when a government has a list of citizens that are in various ethnic and racial categories? That could never go wrong, right?
30 plus, technically correct. 309.
I must have misread that.
30 countries.
30 countries. That's what I was thinking of.
So this has to do with the electronic identification, authentication, and trust services. It has to do with your ID. Now, it does give you like interoperability between the EU countries, so convenience, but it also has a lot of hidden badness in it in terms of, how you get one, what you have to prove. And the big thing about this that we always talk about is like, you could be turned off. You get these freedoms and then they don't like you and then you just become a non-person. Because your ID's gone. And over in London, oh, you know what? I missorted that. Should have put it with the UK story.
Ooh.
It's in the Euro basket, so I'm going to take the win on it. But
no one is going to be happy with you. Actually, probably no one would have noticed if you hadn't pointed it out.
Well, they need to notice. They need to be more perceptive about these things when they're consuming information. Well, in this world that we live in, Krista, come on. Anyway. In London, they have the iPhone battery trial. Now, of course, we know about the iPhone battery stuff. It was to some degree proven here. I think Apple admitted it, didn't they?
Yeah.
But for some reason in London, it never happened.
Mass lawsuit against Apple over iPhone batteries can go ahead. London tribunal rules.
I think someone saw that lawsuit from the US and they're like, hey.
Now,
That happens a lot.
Now, if you have the attention span of a goldfish, you might remember that here it was like, and the land of capitalism, and Apple can have planned obsolescence. And they still had to pay, I think, what was it, $100? They could give you $100 credit toward a new phone or the battery repair service, which made replacing your battery like $30.
I think this is a little bit, they're claiming more here though.
Yeah.
They're saying that Apple sort of did the thing where, when you first get the phone, it works well. Then they degrade it over time because all the reviews have been done and you've gotten used to it and you won't notice it as much. And also that they did this not just to save the batteries, but to keep from costing more money.
Gosh, that sounds exactly like the iPhone 17 release and thing where, remember, it's getting hot and doing weird stuff, and then they got a software patch to make it not get hot, which conveniently enough alters performance.
But look at what they did. They figured out the cycle and they were like, how can we make people beg us to throttle their phones? Make them blow up. Can we all agree?
People
Make them
don't
blow
like
up.
that. It's slightly radioactive.
And the Dutch also are still in a bitter fight with Apple. This has been going on for
2 years.
years. And I'm like, the regulator is basically just refuting Apple's claims here. I don't even know if this is a court action.
Dutch regulator disputes Apple's commissions in dating app case. Now, this is interesting. It's the one that we covered before, but it's basically just Apple's charging fees, 30%, whatever,
And not allowing you to
yeah.
step out of that.
But we're gonna in the business section, we're gonna talk about Apple's earnings and all this other kind of stuff. They make more money from services and the App Store than they do from the entire line of MacBook laptops, like gross revenues, not net revenue. Like the gross billions of dollars from laptops is not as much as from iCloud and related things. In fact, iCloud is like 3 times as much. And that's mind blowing, first of all. But second of all, it might have been a poor translation, but it seemed like the Dutch prosecutors were saying, why does Apple, like if you go to a website and the website is a complicated website and it does a whole bunch of stuff and you can download the website as an application kind of thing, why does that not incur a fee when something in the App Store does incur a fee? And that's a good question.
Because it's our store. And you're just a guest.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll see more of that. I'm sure that will go on for years and years to come.
I mean, how many apps could exist as a web app in JavaScript or WebAssembly and run reasonably fine? Like the cost for those apps and infrastructure and everything else could be zero.
But then no one would find it on their little phone and
Yeah.
no one cares.
So Apple is being a gatekeeper. That's a de facto gatekeeper.
Girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight.
Well, you may notice that, we covered this is mainstream media, but the television media and stuff like that is really losing its grip. And the ability to control the hearts and minds of a people means that you keep having to get more and more draconian control of social media and alternative media, and make sure that people who don't have a lot of followers who are just talking about these things can't say certain words ever or take away everything that they have.
That doesn't sound familiar at all.
And you need to get control of that. And then let's say that in the midst of all that, you start a really unpopular war, really unpopular. How do you then
It's hitting a little too close to home.
how do you maintain that control?
Oh, Russia, thank God. Russia blocks 167 VPNs, steps up OpenVPN and WireGuard disruption. So basically, it's like, oh, we can't inspect this traffic. Good luck.
So they've banned the business VPNs, but also now they are blocking IP addresses and ports, and as you mentioned, sniffing around for possible open source protocols running.
This is definitely not.
That's what everyone dreamed of when they thought of the internet, right? Like, just little tiny partitions by country and people groups, so that way people can't share ideas.
And when you're desperately trying to reach out to another group, it just gets sliced off.
Yeah,
and
that
go to
was the
gulag.
dream of the internet, I think.
Well, the Chinese dream of the internet, in terms of the Communist Party, probably was that, because they've never felt good about that kind of thing. And they have a similar problem with controlling the speech.
China removes anonymity of bloggers' accounts with more than 500,000 followers. So if you got more than 500,000 followers, they want to know who you are. They want to make sure that you're not spreading a disruptive message.
Putting your full name.
Oh, man, I'm so happy that we don't live under this communist rule, because Western governments would never do. Oh, Canada did it. That's right. Canada
Google tried that for a while too. Remember YouTube comments? Everyone was very angry about
Oh,
that.
and Google Plus.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to do it's like, we've done the simulations. This is the only answer. And it's like, really, I've heard that kind of attitude before. The first time I encountered it was Microsoft, when they said that 320 by 240 was the only resolution you needed on a phone.
Is that the only time YouTube's really walked something back?
Yeah.
Because like every other change they've made, they kind of stick by it. Like the whole, you will not have an ad.
It's like, all right,
Ad
we'll
blocker.
go to another platform. We
wait.
can't talk about that.
Yeah, you're literally not allowed to mention the other platforms now. And in India, they have all those things as well, but they will take it a step further, it seems, because when the stuff out in the open is not quite silencing everybody, you got to go behind the scenes, maybe do a little hacking.
Apple warns Indian opposition leaders of state-sponsored iPhone attacks. So basically, Apple is telling Apple phone owners, hey, somebody's trying to mess with your phone in really strange and interesting ways that we're not really sure about.
Yeah. Of course, everybody kind of openly knows who's doing it. It's the current people in power. They do love controlling social media and phones. And in Brazil, they are not quite as wealthy as we are here in America, but they still have all of these services and they want to sell them all of these things. And these people are like, some of us are really poor, so we maybe just want to steal this because we really can't realistically pay you all these subscription fees on the money that we make. And the government stepped in and said, we will work hand in hand with all of these companies.
Brazil regulator claims 80% of Pirate TV boxes were blocked last week. How did they do it? That's actually the real story here. There's like a whole Pirate TV control thing, and they can block thousands of IP addresses at once. There's like a little war room where they get together. Scroll down, there's like this crazy picture. Yeah, it's just like, oh, we've got racks and racks of telecom equipment, and they can monitor everything on their giant TVs. And it's like, let's shut her down.
Calling it a war room made it sound more impressive in my head, and then it just kind of looked like a conference room.
Conference room with 2 walls of TVs.
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive, but
And those are
where's the lava pit?
Are those racks or vending machines?
I think they look like racks.
Yes.
A combo would be great,
Yeah.
right? The biggest thing here that shocked me was, you kind of expect them to do all this other stuff, blocking all the services and spying and making sure, but now it is actually illegal to have a set-top box that's not on the allowed list. If you built your own, if you 3D printed a case, put a Raspberry Pi in there and plugged in an HDMI cable, you're going straight to prison.
A Disney regulator is coming right now.
With a SWAT team. Oh, and here's a little nugget of
This
terror.
should not surprise anybody.
If you're thinking, hey, you know what keeps me up at night? The fact that law enforcement has unfettered access to all the DNA research from the private companies. That's terrifying. Could it possibly be worse? How about Big Pharma getting access?
23andMe announces collaboration extension with a new data license agreement with GlaxoSmithKline.
This is the commonly referred to de-identified or anonymized data, which we all know when it comes to DNA, there's no such thing. It's literally a unique identifier.
We found this guy in this 23andMe database. You won't believe it. He's got this weird allergy to meat. It's crazy.
Just go read a court transcript where they use DNA evidence, because they'll always ask the experts, like, what are the odds that this is a match? And they'll be like, 11 billion to 1. And yet we're going to anonymize it?
I was reading that 23andMe has never claimed to be like a healthcare thing, and that's why they can get around HIPAA stuff.
Oh, that's kind of flies in the face of that, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Well, you volunteered to give up your... And it's like, no, I didn't. It's like,
I just wanted to pay you to get the DNA kit, not for you to sell it.
And Microsoft was a big player in the SolarWinds debacle. And it seems that when they saw the headline of the SolarWinds people being prosecuted, they were like, oh, we should announce something.
Microsoft is overhauling its software security after major Azure cloud attacks. Now, so far, they haven't. There's a logging feature that haven't rolled out to E1 customers, or they're only just starting to roll it out for the E1 customers. You couldn't even detect the hack that already happened, not the SolarWinds hack, but the other hack. So, yeah, this is good. This is really good.
And of course, the biggest thing about the announcement is now AI will be in charge of detecting that. So Microsoft going to depend on AI to figure out when they're being hacked, rather than proactively trying to stop it, I guess. And they did not stop anybody when it came to MOVEit. And we keep finding out more and more about the victims of MOVEit and exactly how much was lost.
Russian hackers breached 632,000 DOJ and Pentagon email addresses in massive MOVEit Cyberattack, report says.
That's a lot.
Not great.
They got access to their email inboxes, I think. And who knows what they got from there. I mean, you could two-factor from there.
This article actually mentions OPM. Good job, article author.
Bingo.
Take a drink.
But it shouldn't count when it's actually in the article.
Well, you got another one earlier. I forgot to mention it. And the Russians, again, boy, they just can't keep their dirty Russian fingers out of our cybersecurity stuff. And this time, an interesting vector.
Now Russians accused of owning JFK taxi system to sell top spots to cabbies. This isn't even a counterintelligence thing. This is just good old-fashioned,
Yeah.
Let's make some money.
Now, they did have some inside guys. The inside guys have been arrested and charged.
2 of them.
And the 2 Russians who were doing, it sounds like the Russians were doing the technical work.
Yeah.
And the inside guys were just like sneaking USB sticks in various places. So the scam here is to go from the airport in a cab costs north of $70 to get into the city. So the cabbies love that. That's like free money to them because it's only going to take them about an hour. And what these guys were doing is they were charging $10 to move you to the front of that line. So you could just keep rotating that $70 loop all day long, pay them $50 at the end of the day, and you're still going to net a lot of cash. Not a bad scheme.
Until they got caught.
Yeah. And we have a new kind of malware here, which is interesting because many times malware, the payload is a crypto miner. But in this case, it's the mirror universe.
Powerful malware disguised as crypto miner infects 1 million plus Windows and Linux PCs. Antivirus provider Kaspersky is the one that found this. Stripefly is what they call it. It's malware camouflage as cryptocurrency miner. It's been targeting PCs for more than 5 years. It actually is a cryptocurrency miner, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it does that, right?
yeah,
It
but,
does other stuff too.
yeah.
But you install it as a crypto miner.
Yeah.
Like you want a crypto miner, you go and get this, you get some malware. It's Eternal. Was
It's a
Eternal
tale
Blue?
as old as time, it seems like.
I think Eternal Blue is the name of the. Yeah. Here's a fun flow chart for you to enjoy. It's a little bomb.
Just to make you a little nervous.
And Google has screwed up a new version of Android. How often do we hear that? Pretty much every version of Android. I don't know who's testing anything anymore.
Ars Technica's extra salty headline is Google promises a rescue patch for Android 14's quote-unquote ransomware bug. Now, this wasn't actually ransomware. It's just, once again, when Android has an advanced feature that power users adopt, no one inside Google tests that. This is multiple profiles on your phone. So if you set up a work profile and an off-work profile on your Android phone, when that's working correctly, that's actually really cool. At the end of the day, you can sign out of work, and then your work notifications and all your nonsense that you have to deal with for work goes to sleep, and you can have something else. The problem is that when you upgraded to Android, the latest version of Android, it would, and you had multiple profiles set up, it would lock you out of local storage, which could prevent your phone from booting. And Google didn't even acknowledge that as a problem for more than a week.
Probably the percentage of people who use it is so low, they're just like, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, that literally is exactly what happened, as is what happens. Oh, the percentage of people who are using Google domains is so low, we just don't care.
Well, it's a little bit disturbing. When the government and business were working so closely hand in hand that you can't tell the difference. Gosh, there's a word for that. What is that? Can't think of it right now. But that's scary. And it's even scarier when a business has so much involvement with the Department of Defense that you could just consider them a part of it, right? But then you see this headline.
Boeing says a quote-unquote cyber incident hit parts of its business after it got threatened with a ransom. Well, some stuff happened. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's kind of what they've announced. Now, this is the part of their business that supplies spare parts. So if your plane needs a spare part, it might be a little bump in the road getting that for the time being. I'm sure they didn't get any important, confidential, classified information about, I don't know, our jets. And here's a terrifying little story. Now, we've seen a lot of this. We talked about Flock a lot in the past. There's some other companies that do the like, hey, just partner with us and we'll blanket your world in cameras. These guys are taking a different approach. You think it's Fusus? Is that how you pronounce that?
No.
Sus. Among
Fusus.
Us. Sus.
I took it as F-U, you're sus.
They forgot the dash. Anyway, they take a slightly different approach, which is, they say like, hey, cameras are already everywhere. Just give all control to all cameras in your city to us, and everything will be good.
AI cameras took over a small town, American town. Now they're everywhere. So this is a piece of software that lets you tie together, doorbell cameras and light pole cameras and consumer individual cameras and whatever you want to give the police and so on and so forth. And so it can be used to fight crime or detect citizen movement or whatever.
This control room looks a lot like the other one, doesn't it?
I was about to say, yeah. So I was like, man, this is a whole episode just devoted to ominous control rooms. But you can charge your phone in the middle there if you don't want to pay attention to the meeting.
Well, obviously, you can
Excellent.
plug in your laptop.
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes when you're not paying attention, your mom just had a blood transfusion and you don't know what's going on.
It's interesting. It used to be kind of verboten to haul your phone out at a meeting. That's not true anymore.
No.
I feel weird about that. I usually take notes by hand, which is maybe a little analog.
People even the high-ranking people who call the meeting are on their phones for the entire meeting.
I love it when I go into a meeting and the person who called it is like, okay, what are we here for? And I'm like, you set this up. What are we doing?
So this, you can plug all of your cameras into this thing, and they claim that it does not have facial recognition
Why wouldn't it?
in the press release,
Why not?
but in the sales copy, it does say it has facial recognition.
Oh, right. There it is.
And it does also identify. So, for example, you get a crime happens and somebody's like, yeah, I was wearing a white hoodie and black shoes. And then this thing is like, oh, okay, let me find everybody that's got a white hoodie and black shoes and just return that to you.
If you haven't downloaded the Python thing that does that, you should that's the ultimate democratized thing. If you have crappy surveillance cameras and it's like, hey, show me anybody that walked in front of my house that had a white cap and baseball shoes on, it can do that right now, today. You don't have to, no programming is involved. It's like 3 lines of Python.
So you don't have to buy cameras. They've got this thing called SmartCore, which you just run your camera through, and it adds all of the artificial intelligence and the piping everything back to the central location on a dumb camera. So if you've just got a surveillance camera, you're a business owner, they're going to come to you, see the camera registry program. That sounds wholesome, doesn't it? And there's also a phone app if you would like your personal videos to be searchable by everybody in power.
It's wild to me sometimes when you try to explain this to older people, like, no, they're like monitoring cameras and stuff. Like, isn't that good? Doesn't that reduce crime? And I'm like,
So they have a lot of sales material if you'd like to peruse it to explain exactly what all this stuff does. And
How long is the footage retained? Silence.
yeah.
well, look at the number 1 comment. The positive benefits are obvious. I'm not concerned with questions of privacy. It's an ongoing debate. Yeah, I'm sure Rick Sachs is a real human.
Are you the C-137 Rick Sachs or?
Privacy as a computer. I don't have privacy.
A large language model.
Anyway, that's it for today.
But seriously, build one of these for yourself and see how horrifying it can be, because oh boy, being able to ask your cameras what they saw today. It's like, how's it going today, Timmy? It's like, I saw 17 people today. Oh, really? One of the things I saw was a really old classic car. Oh, okay.
That's lovely. And then you may pour yourself a nice big drink of hot Pepsi from the crock pot.
Well, you wouldn't pour it as much as a ladle, probably.
Yeah.
Because you got to go in there.
And someone called it mulled cider, which usually if you make a cider, you have like spices and stuff. And I was like, what spices would go well with Pepsi if you mulled it?
Well, obviously, the magical herb mixtures you put in Dr. Pepper, right? 'Cause
Engagement challenge.
basically the same
Yeah,
thing.
what spices would you put in your hot crock pot Pepsi?
Shoe polish.
Cyanide.
Something to kill me so I can forget.
So I don't ever have to taste this again.
Anyway, we'll see you the next day. Bye.